Okay, so we've got our space starting to come together. We're definitely going to refine a lot of these details and add a lot more to it as we work things out in more detail. But that enclosure is enough to give us a basic idea of the space, and we can start setting out these structural columns that you can see there. So these two large circular columns and the other rectangular ones. So for that, it's really important that you use the structural columns, not architectural columns. And just a reminder, generally, you probably want to avoid architectural columns at first, and if you can, try to use structural columns. So I'm just going to focus on that tool. So under the column menu or drop down there, you can go to structural column. And then the first thing to watch out for with all structural columns, when you place them the first time, is that they're set up for engineers. Engineers tend to work from the footings up, so they have this option set to depth, which would take the column down below the floor that we're working on. And we don't want that, we want it to go up. So we're not engineers. So we change that option to height, and then it measures in the direction we want. And then I'm just going to tie it to the same level we've been using for the walls, to ceiling 2. And we'll definitely adjust the levels further later on as well, but for now that's fine. So next we'll go to load in the correct family, just so that you can see over here we've only got the one column loaded. It's called a UC, which is a universal column, and it's steel. So we want a concrete column. I'm going to click load family, and then browse again to the metric library. And then really important that you don't use the columns folder because they're architectural. You need to scroll down and find structural columns. So then you can see we've got a folder for concrete. And there is a concrete round column. Open, and you'll see that it will probably only have a few sizes set by default. Okay, so even the 750, the biggest one there, is not big enough for this column, which luckily has a dimension, so I don't have to go and measure that. So it's 900 radius or 1800 diameter. So I'm just going to click Edit Type and duplicate, and then make it 1800 mil, the name, and then change that dimension there also to 1800. Click OK, and you can see, of course, that it's the right size. And I'm just going to do this by eye, so I'll zoom in to get it as close as I can. And then I'm just going to place that by clicking so that it lines up with the drawing. Perfect. And then I'm going to cancel it so that I can copy the column rather than just trying to place a new one, and that'll keep them exactly in line. So I'm going to select that column, and then click copy, and then just bring that across, making sure I keep it straight. And I didn't get that exactly right, but I know it's in the same line, so then I can use the left and right arrow just to nudge that into position. So they're my round columns. It doesn't hurt probably just to check those quickly in 3D. You can see how dominant they are, but that actually I think could be a nice feature. And so going back now to the rectangular columns, same basic process, but we don't have a dimension there, I don't think, so I'm going to measure these first. Just with the measure tool. So it is, what, 600? See, it's coming up 603, so I'll say that's 600 by 600. Okay, that's odd, because on my screen, this is actually, I think, a really good thing for you to see. Yeah. Okay, on my screen, and you can probably see on the projector as well, that looks like a rectangle. Does that look like a square to anyone? Oh, it does on yours. Right, perfect, yeah. Yes, it does. I can see your screens. Yeah, see, now notice how your screens are being squashed, so your aspect ratio is different to mine. So this shows you how important aspect ratio can be, because, and something you should always check on your computers. Here we've had to set it to this to get it to work on the projector and the monitor, but yeah, it just shows you how the pixel aspect, or the ratio of the length to the width of your screen, can actually distort measurements and sizes. So it is a square, even though it may look sometimes like a rectangle on certain screens. So that's why it's important always to measure things and go with the measurements rather than sometimes how it looks. So again, back to structural column now. Load family. Nice thing with the new version of Revit 2019, it remembers the last folder you were in, so you don't need to keep browsing to it. Yeah. There's lots of good new little nice features that they've got in 2019 like that. So here I want concrete square column. It is a square. There's a rectangular one as well, of course, but in this case, square is fine. And yeah, we do have a 601 there already, so that's good. And so again, by eye, I will just place that so that it lines up with my wall. And in fact, I'll show you a little trick there. Because it's not seeming to snap there to the side of the wall I want, I'm just going to put it to one side, and that's sometimes better, and then use the align tool. So I'm going to make sure that this option here is on wall faces, and then I'll pick the side of my wall, and then pick the side of my column on the left. So they line up exactly, and then I'll pick the bottom of my wall, and then again the top of the column to line those up exactly. And that's a better way of making sure they're all exactly in line than trying to do it as you place it. So then again, I'll select the column and simply use copy to bring that down and get it there inside the wall. And well, again, I can nudge that. In this case, I'm just going to use the down arrow on the keyboard to nudge that down. It doesn't really matter if it's overlapping the wall, and it should cover the part of the wall that it's overlapping. And you can use the join tool if you want to join that wall to the column. But what that'll then do is take away the concrete hatch. Which could be good later, but for now I'm going to undo that because I want to see the concrete material in that column. So I deliberately left the detail here until those columns were there because, of course, by drawing the columns we've then got some points we can use to add in the extra walls and other things. We don't really even need to draw in all of this detail. That's insulation or something that's probably, again, beyond the scope of the work we need to look at. But here you've definitely got some things that might help to draw the walls, all the extra things we need. And yeah, so here you can see, looking at this note, there may not be a wall that's existing, but definitely as part of the fit out, you need to take your lining to that edge. So that means we can draw in a new wall, and there's no problem having walls side by side, so I'm just going to I'll just use generic 100mm for now. So I want to have the walls touching. So I'm going to change the location line to finish face exterior, and that way I can draw from this corner point and the wall will go to the right side. So in other words, the interior face is on the left. I'm just going to bring that down to about here. I'll line it all up properly in a minute. Yeah, that'll do. So it's close, but it's not quite right because it probably should be a little bit thicker. So let's see how much I need to extend it. Yeah, let's say 40. Yeah. So I'll select that wall. And because of the way I've drawn it, if I change the size, it's going to keep the back of the wall on the edge of the other wall and then project it to the left. That's why I do it that way. So now if I go to Edit Type, duplicate, and just to remind you about setting new sizes, so I'm going to make a generic 140mm wall. Click Edit to change the structure and change this, of course, to 140. And you can see it just adds that. So now, of course, I can do the same thing here. Check that one out, and that's better. Okay, so if you do want to bring the curtain wall across and make it more like the drawing here, like Atlanta was doing, then that's probably a good idea. Actually, I think it might look better. So if you want to move that curtain wall across, when you select it, you should see that if you use the arrows on the keyboard to nudge it, that it should move without moving those other walls, because they shouldn't be joined. But if you notice that they are joined, you'll need to drag the other walls away. So then you can add in some extra walls if you want to, and make it look more like this drawing. So I just might use the generic 100 mil for now. And again, I've got it on finished face exterior, which means I can draw from this corner point, take it over to the right. Oops, I didn't mean to click though. So I'll just do that again. Okay, so from this corner point, and again I'm going to press space to flip it. So notice how the curtain wall automatically has joined itself to this new wall, which is a nice thing. So then I can do the same on the other side. So again from here, well actually this one's a bit lower, so the trick there would be to drag this wall down first and then come from that new point. So again, it's going the wrong way, but I'm using the right location line, so again space, and, oh no, sorry, I'm not using the right location line, so I'm sorry, I've got to use finished face interior, because I'm drawing now with the interior edge of the wall. Let's extend that a bit further. So you can see this time it hasn't joined automatically, so I'm going to select my curtain wall and to finish off just drag that down and snap it, and then they will be joined. So notice how you can adjust the curtain walls, and that's really all I'm trying to show you to finish off. You can adjust the curtain walls after you've set up your grid, and your grid is just going to adjust itself to follow those changes. Oops. So you can see there, it looks a little bit strange because I didn't set the height of these walls to match, but I can easily change that afterwards to ceiling 2. And there we are, that looks okay. Oh, now my other walls there as well. Just for now, keep them all on the same level. We'll go right through the heights properly afterwards. There we are. And so I won't show you this, but you can then enclose those columns by drawing more walls, just following the drawings. Don't be too fussy about what's inside, just make sure you've got a wall that goes around the outside edge of these walls that you can see here. Maybe I will just draw a little bit quickly. So in this case, that's the outside, so we're going to go finish face exterior. And from there, so again, if it's going the wrong way, space to flip. So something like that. Again, don't be too fussy about these things. This isn't even part of your space, so as long as you've got something there, that's enough. Okay, so same on the other side, and really all you're trying to achieve there is to have the columns hidden. And I keep forgetting to change the height, so I'll just do that now. There we are. And maybe I'll just show one last thing, because I haven't been talking to you about saving, but really important that you save as you go, of course. So save as project, and if you haven't already, make sure you make a folder in the class folder, because if you're saving directly to your memory sticks, then there's a good chance you're going to lose data at some point. There's some technical issues saving to memory sticks that a lot of people aren't aware of. The main problem is that they aren't that reliable, and if something goes wrong while you're saving, and I've seen it happen plenty of times, you're going to lose everything on the memory stick and you've got no backup, and you're going to lose a lot of work. So it's probably better, even though other people can see your work, so think about that, but it is better to save onto a hard drive, either a network drive, or you can even just use the local drive on your computer, your documents folder. And if you don't want other people to see your work, that's a good one. But usually it's fine to just save into the class folder and then back up that whole folder onto your memory stick, and that way you've got an exact copy of everything. And there are some other technical issues, because if you're saving onto your memory stick, it's constantly writing to that device, and they're only really made to have a certain number of repetitions, of write cycles, and then they fail. So you actually make them die earlier by saving to them all the time. And then there are some other technical issues which I'll go into later, but yeah, it's just a good habit to get into, saving onto a hard drive, especially when you get bigger projects and bigger files. Yeah, it will help you a lot. And I know, look, people can access your work, and that's not great, but in design, especially in architecture and interior design, it's pretty standard to share work, and it's almost impossible for people to plagiarise other people's designs, because you can't really. When you've got to submit design projects, it's obvious that it has to be your own work, and everyone can see your design process, and there's no point. I mean, I've had access to literally hundreds and hundreds, like thousands and thousands of other people's design projects over the years, and I've also had to submit assignments throughout that whole time, and I could have maybe thought about taking other people's design work and trying to pass it off as my own, but it would have been virtually impossible. Not that I'd want to do it anyway, but it's a really difficult thing. Probably more work to do that than just do your own design. Not really, no, because it's so difficult to try and get someone else's design and change it so it looks like it's your own. It's actually more work than just doing a design. And so what's the point? You're doing this because you want a design. There's no point. I wouldn't want to steal other people's. But then sharing library paths is standard, and you've all done that. You would have all gotten things from Revit City and other places. And so when you see other students, things that furniture and other things they've made, it's really good that that's shared and everyone can use it. So I think there's nothing wrong with having access to other people's library files, as long as you're not pinching their designs, and that's standard in industry. Everyone shares all their work, and in an office you'll always share everything you do with all the other people. So again, make sure you're saving the file. That's really all I wanted to emphasise there. And